If you haven't already done so today, why don't you grab yourself a glass of water as we prepare to discuss the natural law before Noah. We're going to be talking about the fruit of the earth as the human diet. You might often hear individuals talk about dietary laws, but when they are talking about dietary laws related to scripture, they are not usually talking about the natural dietary laws that came before anything in Leviticus or Deuteronomy. And the natural dietary law is in Genesis, and it relates to the first Adam. And so this is the Adam humanity before the narrative about Adam and Eve. So check this out. This is Genesis chapter 1. We are looking at 27, 28, and 29 with a focus on 29. And so 27 is the passage where the creation of humanity occurred. We are not talking about Adam and Eve. We are talking about the creation of humanity. And so then at 28, there is the blessing. And then at 29, this important natural law appears. And it indicates, and God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in thee which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And so what's indicated here is that humanity, as created, was created to consume this particular food. And it is essentially herbs and fruit. When reflecting on the quality of fruit, a few things come to mind. First of all, the food that was chosen for humanity appears to be the choice food on the planet. And so instead of being the dead flesh of an animal, the food that was chosen for humanity was that which was alive. And so it had inside of it the essence of the creator. And so it had that essence of Eve in it. It also had the seed within it. Fruit also has healing and rejuvenating powers. Fruit, in terms of appearance, is extremely beautiful when you are looking at it. It's very colorful for the most part. And we aren't just talking about sweet fruit, we are also talking about savory fruit. We are also talking about seeds, nuts. So fruit also tends to be extremely flavorful and nutrient dense. And for the most part, when you look at many fruit, you'll notice that they are often water rich. They are naturally sweet. Some of them are naturally savory. You don't really have to do anything to them. And you can eat them raw in nature. And another thing to keep in mind is that they are plentiful in terms of the earth. And so there is plenty of fruit to go around. Another thing that you will notice if you start to research fruit is that fruit is related to the health and healing of specific body systems. You will find information about fruit and the health of the circulatory system, the reproductive system, the immune system, the respiratory system, the nervous system. And so if you look at the fruit, you can actually find a specific fruit that can help with the health and the healing of a particular body system. Another interesting thing to make note of is that with respect to vegetation and body organs, sometimes vegetation actually resembles specific body organs, like the heart and the brain, for instance, with respect to cherries and walnuts. And what you'll also often find is that when vegetation resembles an organ, it is often beneficial to that specific organ. Very odd. And remember, for the most part, fruit is plentiful throughout the earth. And so in different climates, you will find different fruit, of course. But each geographic region has fruit available to it. It may not be the fruit that you like that's in another region, but every region has some fruit somewhere. So you have everything from apples to apricots to cherries and oranges and cucumber, agave. And agave is multifaceted too. You have some fruit that you can actually use as a sweetener. And so fruit has many components to it, and it also has many uses. You have black elderberry. That's something you might want to research. Also, raspberry. And of course, fruit has all of these bioflavonoids. And so all of these bright colors translate into health benefits. And you often will see some fruit that serves as a powerhouse. Some fruit, for instance, is very dense in terms of a particular nutrient. Things like cantaloupe and kiwi. These fruits have significant vitamin A in them, vitamin C in them, and so they are very nutrient dense. Some other fruit that you might want to consider and just look around in your area and see what is available that you might want to try out and do a little bit of research on. And so, of course, cranberry is another powerhouse. Figs are very important. Cucumbers are very beneficial. It's important to keep in mind that not all fruit is sweet, and you have a lot of savory options to choose from. And then also, seeds and nuts also are forms of fruit. Then you also have fruit that serves as a spice, such as nutmeg. And so you have options such as macadamia, you have tamarind, you have neem that has many uses. You have nectarines, you have melons, you have pears. There are so many options to consider, and this is around the world for individuals to consume, to stay healthy, and to live. Clearly, if in scripture it indicated that this was the food for humanity, that there's a high likelihood that people can be sustained on fruit. And you also, of course, have inside of certain fruits substantial protein. So that would be the seeds and the nuts. Of course, history is interesting, but what is more important than history is what are you doing right now? What are you doing in your present life to prepare for your future? What are you doing to be okay? Again, it's fine to talk about these people that lived 1,000 years ago. And they may be important in terms of your life today. However, what is more important is the person who is living right now, and that is you. And what are you doing with your life? Again, there are many nutrient dense options with respect to fruit, and you have all of these options around the world. It's just amazing how much fruit is available to humanity around the world. You have things as simple as the banana, and then you have, exotic things like the blood orange, you have the blood lime, brush cherry, Brazilian guava, black cherry. You have these beautiful plums. So there are so many options available, and many of these things grow in the wild, like blackberries. So you can find many of these things in the wild. They are not things that you actually have to cultivate yourself. And since we are comprised of water, it's also important to keep in mind that there are many fruit options available that will help to increase the water supply that is available to you. It's also important to keep in mind that you can use some fruit as a seasoning. Lemon, for instance, lime, for instance, they both serve as forms of seasoning. And so you have additional options here. You have the Japanese persimmon fruit, you have the jelly palm, you have the lady apple, you have the loganberry, again an Indian fig, and you have gooseberry and jackfruit. And so there are many options. And some people actually use jackfruit as a replacement for meat. And so they cook it in a way that would replace meat. You see that with other vegetation such as cauliflower Sometimes people do that with broccoli. And so you see a lot of vegetation that is used as a meat replacement. Again, this is not a vegetarian, vegan, fruitarian propaganda piece here, but it is to point out that there is significant benefit in fruit that might be overlooked. And also, fruit might be overlooked in terms of a viable, life sustaining option that is available throughout the world. Also, consider becoming familiar with the fruit in your area that is indigenous to that area. Some other fruit that individuals might not think about when they think about fruit is coconut. Coconut is extremely important. Coconut is very versatile in terms of what you can do with it. First of all, you have the meat of the coconut. Then you have cream that can be made from the coconut, milk that can be made from the coconut, the coconut water or the coconut juice. And then also, in terms of cooking, you have coconut oil available. And of course, coconut oil can be used both internally and externally. You also have options available such as grapefruit and grapes and honeydew melon and honeysuckle. Again, thinking about things that are in the wild, honeysuckle is definitely available in the wild. And many fruit options can be reduced to jelly form. They can create actual sugars that you can actually use in your food to sweeten your food. Avocado is another powerhouse fruit that you might want to look into. And when thinking about fruit, again, consider things that are outside of the fruit norm. So, outside of that sweet norm, there are many options that are savory that people don't always think about. Olives are an example, tomatoes are an example, sweet peppers are an example. And so you also have additional options with respect to seeds and nuts, such as pecans, that you might want to consider. Again, you have watermelon, you have passion fruit, plums, raspberry, so many different options to choose from, even vanilla. Okay, so most people definitely don't think about vanilla, but there are all sorts of things that you can do with vanilla, even in its natural state, prior to using it as the general seasoning as an extract. And be creative with the fruit. You can do so many things with fruit. You can just eat it raw. You can slice it. You can juice it. You can grill it. You might want to try some grilled pineapple. You can roast fruit. You can put fruit in a smoothie. You can use fruit as a main dish, a side dish, as a dessert. And then you can mix different types of fruit together to come up with all sorts of combinations. For instance, in a smoothie, you can have in a smoothie something like pineapple and papaya and peach and cherries and blueberries. And then to add the protein to it with another fruit, you can put in something like almond butter or some sort of nut butter to give it a creamy texture. And it adds that protein to it, but it's a complete fruit smoothie. Another important thing to keep in mind is that children will readily consume fruit. Children tend to love fruit. They tend to like things that are sweet. And so it's very easy to get them to consume a significant amount of fruit. Another thing that comes to mind with respect to fruit and natural law and this prevalence of disease that we have. So there's significant illness, significant morbidity, significant disease. And a question that comes up is whether some of this is growing out of a violation of the natural law. And so if the body is made to consume fruit, as its mainstay. What happens when human beings deviate from this natural law that is in Scripture? That's not to say that these other foods that people choose to eat are not beneficial. There's just a question about whether some of the disease that we see is growing out of not sufficiently consuming what was apparently, according to scripture, made for humanity. It is absolutely true that we are what we eat. And with that in mind, it's important to think about every day what it is that we can put in our bodies, what we can consume to make our bodies better, what we can consume to make ourselves better versus making ourselves worse. If you have anything else to contribute to this discussion, any suggestions, please share them in the comment section so that we can all benefit from collective communal knowledge.